They say some choices mark you forever. Not with scars on your skin, but with whispers in your mind, quiet little echoes that follow you through every silent room, every restless night. You live your life, you smile through your mornings, you go to work, you say, "I'm fine," when people ask. But deep down, you're never quite the same. And I guess that's where I'm at. Because there was this one night, one offer, one decision, and I haven't stopped thinking about it since. You see, I thought I knew who I was. I thought I had boundaries, values, self-control. I thought I understood friendship, loyalty, marriage, what lines not to cross. I had always been the one who judged others for their messes, like, how do you end up in a situation like that? Well, now I know. It starts small, with laughter over wine, with a look that lingers just a little too long, with a question that seems like a joke until it's not. It starts when you're vulnerable and someone you trust walks just a little too close to the edge of your comfort zone. And before you even realize it, you're standing right there with them. My friend, someone I loved like a sister, and her husband, who I thought was charming in that distant, harmless kind of way, they made me an offer. Not at first. Not directly. It was slow, subtle, like a string being pulled tighter with every gathering, every conversation, every shared smile. And when the moment finally came, it didn't feel shocking. It felt inevitable. Like everything in my life had been slowly walking me toward that night. What I did next, well, it's something I still haven't forgiven myself for. But this isn't just about what happened. This is about how easy it is to lose yourself when you're lonely. When someone makes you feel seen after months or years of feeling invisible. When you crave connection so badly that you start justifying the unimaginable. When desire starts to look like love and morality starts to look like a cage. If you've ever felt unseen, if you've ever wanted something that didn't belong to you, if you've ever made a choice you swore you never would, then maybe you'll understand me. Or maybe you'll judge me. And that's okay too. But just know this story, it's not black and white. It's messy. It's raw. It's real. And I'm not proud of what happened. But I won't lie about it either. Because sometimes, it's the stories we're most ashamed to tell that end up saving someone else from making the same mistake. So take a deep breath with me. We're going in. And if you want to hear stories that expose the real parts of people, the messy, human, heartbreakingly honest parts, subscribe to Heartfelt Tales Unfold. Because stories like this one remind us just how thin the line is between loyalty and desire. Let's begin. When I moved here, I told myself it was a fresh start. New city, new apartment, new everything. I was in my mid-30s, single, and emotionally wrecked after the kind of breakup that doesn't just break your heart, it breaks your identity. The kind that leaves you staring at your own reflection wondering who the hell you even are anymore. Claire was the first person who made this place feel less cold. She was warm, magnetic, the kind of person who knew how to fill a room without saying much. We met through mutual friends at a small gathering, and she took to me instantly. She had this way of looking at you, like you mattered, like whatever pain you were carrying wasn't too much. She made space for it. For me. She was married, of course. Jason, her husband. He was complicated. Handsome, absolutely. The kind of handsome that felt practiced. The kind of man who always seemed to know when you were looking and looked away just fast enough to make you wonder if he even saw you. But what struck me the most about them was how together they seemed. You know those couples that just fit? They finished each other's sentences, shared inside jokes, moved around each other like choreography. It was enviable. Painfully so. And I'd sit there during their dinner parties, swirling wine in my glass, pretending not to notice how Claire would lean her head on Jason's shoulder or how he'd brush her back as he passed. They made marriage look easy, intimate, inviting. My apartment was just a few blocks away from their house. Small, quiet, filled with unpacked boxes and walls I hadn't bothered to decorate. It felt like a waiting room more than a home. I worked remotely, didn't know many people yet, and most nights passed with takeout and whatever series I could rewatch without thinking. So when Claire started inviting me over more and more, it felt like a lifeline. Sunday brunches. Game nights. Random Tuesdays with wine and charcuterie and deep, laughing conversations that spilled past midnight. It became routine. I belonged there, or at least I told myself I did. But underneath it all, there was this ache. A dull, persistent feeling that I was watching life through a window. I was in the room, yes, but always just a step outside whatever they shared. And I'd catch myself staring at them when they weren't looking, wondering what it felt like to be wanted like that. To be chosen every day. Sometimes Claire would talk about Jason when he wasn't around. Always glowing things. How he still surprised her with flowers. How he rubbed her back when she was stressed. But sometimes her voice would change, just slightly. Like she was performing the story. Like maybe the picture wasn't as perfect as she wanted it to be. And Jason? He never spoke much when it was just the three of us. He listened. Observed. But every once in a while, he'd say something that made me wonder how much he noticed. Something personal. Specific. About me. Like the night he said, "You always tuck your hair behind your ear when you're nervous. You know that?" I didn't. And Claire just laughed like it was nothing. Like he was just being Jason. But I felt something. A flicker. A shift. And that's how it started. Not with a bang. Not with a line crossed. But with quiet little moments that made me feel something I hadn't felt in a long time. Seen. Desired. Alive. And I hated myself for it. Because it was her. Claire. The one person who made this place feel like home. The one person I could trust. At least, that's what I thought. It was a Friday night. I remember because I almost didn't go. I'd had one of those weeks, exhausted, drained, barely hanging on by a thread. I told Claire I might stay in, that I needed a night to myself, but she insisted. Said it had been too long since the three of us had a real night together. And something in her voice, it felt heavier than usual. Like she needed me there. So I went. Their house smelled like sandalwood and red wine. Soft music played in the background, something low and jazzy. The lights were dim. Comfortable. Intimate. Claire greeted me at the door like always, warm hug, glass already in hand, and Jason, as usual, hung back but smiled. We sat around the kitchen island for a while, nibbling on cheese and olives and sipping wine that was way too good for me to pronounce. The conversation started light. Work, neighbors, this new restaurant downtown they wanted to try. And then Claire leaned in, grinning, eyes sparkling with that familiar mischief. She said, "You ever wonder what makes a marriage last?" I laughed, told her I hadn't exactly cracked the code. She looked at Jason, then back at me. Experiences. That's what we've learned. The more unexpected, the better. Jason chuckled, but it wasn't the sound that got me. It was the way he looked at me when he did it. Not like a joke. Not like a shared laugh. He was watching me. Like he was waiting for something. Claire kept talking. Told me they liked to keep things interesting. Tried new things. Pushed boundaries. Explored. And I thought she meant vacations. Or some new hobby. But then she said, sometimes the best things are the ones people don't talk about. I froze for just a second. Something in her tone made my stomach twist. Jason added, casually, everyone has fantasies, right? I smiled. Laughed a little. Tried to brush it off. Then Claire looked right at me and said it. You know, we've talked about you before. The words were slow. Measured. Like they'd been sitting on her tongue, waiting for the right moment to fall. I laughed again. Too loud. Too fast. I said, what, like, in a dream team kind of way. Trying to play it off like a joke. But no one else laughed. Claire tilted her head. Not like that. Not exactly. Just hypotheticals. Jason didn't say a word. But his eyes were on me still. The air felt heavier then. Thicker. I changed the subject, started asking about something random, travel plans, maybe, I don't even remember. But nothing felt normal after that. The energy had shifted. Something unspoken had entered the room, and none of us could pretend it wasn't there. I left earlier than usual that night. Hugged Claire tight. Avoided Jason's eyes. The walk home felt longer than it was. My mind was spinning, but I kept telling myself they were just being playful. Married couples say weird things sometimes. Maybe the wine had talked more than they did. Still, I didn't sleep much. And then, a week later, the next invite came. Claire texted me around 5. Drinks tonight? Just us three. You in? I almost said no. My thumb hovered over the screen. But loneliness does something to you. It whispers to you. Makes you believe that something is better than nothing. That curiosity is harmless. I said yes. This time when I arrived, Jason opened the door. No Claire in sight. He smiled, that same practice smile. Then handed me a drink, deep red, heavy on the alcohol, the kind that tastes like a secret. Claire appeared a few minutes later, wrapped in silk, barefoot, glowing like nothing had happened the week before. We drank, laughed, listened to music. But the silence between words felt louder now. Every glance lingered too long. Every touch felt rehearsed. And then, near midnight, Claire turned to me. Her voice was soft. Serious. We have a question for you, she said. But only if you promise not to freak out. That was the moment it started. The moment I should have said no. I didn't answer right away. When Claire said it, we have a question for you, but only if you promise not to freak out, I laughed. Or at least, I tried to. The kind of laugh that doesn't come from amusement, but panic. The kind of laugh you force out when the room suddenly feels like it's spinning and you don't want anyone to know. I said, okay, what is it? Trying to sound casual. But my voice cracked. Just a little. Claire looked at Jason. Jason looked at Claire. And then they looked at me. I don't remember their exact words. I just remember the feeling. The heat crawling up my neck. The pulse in my ears. The overwhelming realization that this wasn't a joke. Not even close. It was real. I left soon after. Blamed an early morning meeting. Hugged Claire tighter than usual. Barely looked at Jason. The moment I stepped outside, the night air hit me like a slap. Cold, sobering. I walked home fast, like if I moved quickly enough, I could outrun whatever just happened. But it followed me. Into my apartment. Into my bed. Into every corner of my thoughts. Was it a test? Some weird game? Or were they serious? And why did a part of me want it to be real? I sat on my bed, still wearing my coat, staring at the wall like it could give me answers. My phone buzzed. Claire. A simple message. You okay? I didn't reply. I told myself it was the wine. Just the wine. That maybe they got too comfortable or maybe I misread everything. People say strange things under dim lights and too many drinks, right? But it didn't feel like that. It felt deliberate. Like something they'd talked about before. Planned. And I started thinking about my ex. About how he cheated on me with someone I trusted. Someone I'd confided in. How it tore me apart. How I couldn't look in the mirror for weeks because all I saw was a fool. Betrayed. Broken. Now here I was, standing on the other side of that same line. What scared me the most wasn't that they offered. It was that I didn't walk away the second they did. I told myself I was better than this. That I'd never be that kind of woman. The one who steps into someone else's marriage like it's an open door. The one who confuses loneliness with longing, attention with affection. But the days that followed felt heavier than usual. I started avoiding their messages. Ignored Claire's texts. Declined her calls. I even crossed the street one afternoon when I saw Jason jogging toward me. My heart was pounding. I kept my head down like a child avoiding trouble. But even with the distance, I couldn't stop thinking about it. It haunted me. And the worst part? It thrilled me. Every time my phone lit up with Claire's name, my breath caught. Part of me wanted to delete her number. Block it. Pretend it never happened. But another part, a deeper, darker part, wanted to see what she'd say next. One afternoon, I got a voice note from her. Her voice was soft, careful. She said, "Hey, I hope we didn't make you uncomfortable. I just wanted to be honest. You matter to us." Us. That word lingered. Burned. It was intimate in a way I didn't know how to process. I lay awake at night, staring at the ceiling, running through every conversation we'd had in the past 6 months. Every glance. Every casual touch. Every time Claire poured me another glass or Jason asked how I was really doing. Had they been grooming me for this? Or had I just not noticed the signs because a part of me wanted to be wanted? I hated how flattered I felt. How desired. It was intoxicating, confusing, and deeply, deeply shameful. I couldn't talk to anyone about it. Who would understand? Who could I tell that my best friend and her husband made me feel seen in a way I hadn't felt in years, and that a part of me wanted to say yes? I didn't have an answer. So I did nothing, which, in hindsight, might have been the most dangerous choice of all. The next invitation came 3 days later. This time, Claire didn't bother easing into it. No small talk. No pretense. She simply texted, "Dinner. Just us again. We'd really like to talk." I think it could be liberating for all of us. That word, liberating, lingered in my head like a fog. It made my stomach twist, not out of fear exactly, but anticipation. The kind you feel just before something breaks loose inside you. I didn't reply for hours. I sat at my desk, staring at the screen, reading the message over and over. Work piled up in front of me, unanswered emails, unfinished drafts, but I couldn't focus. All I could think about was what liberating meant to her, what she thought it might mean to me. I told myself again that I wouldn't go, that I had drawn my line in the sand. But then it got late. The day turned into evening. My apartment felt small, empty, like it always did after sunset. And without really thinking, I picked up my coat. Jason answered the door again. He looked the same, composed, unreadable, but something in his eyes felt more certain now. Like he already knew what I'd decided, even if I didn't. Claire greeted me like nothing had changed. She poured wine, asked about my day, made a few jokes about work and traffic. But there was a pause between her words now. A breath she held longer than usual. The room felt slower, heavier, as if we were all just waiting for something to begin. She sat across from me, glass in hand, and said, "I meant what I said. I think this could be something good. For all of us." Jason didn't say a word. He just watched me. Calm. Curious. His silence said more than anything he could have spoken aloud. My throat was dry. I said, "What exactly are you asking me?" Claire leaned forward. Her voice dropped. Gentle, but deliberate. Not asking, just offering. "We trust you. And we thought maybe, if you wanted, this could be a safe place. No judgment. No pressure. Just freedom." I couldn't speak. Not because I was scared, but because I wasn't. That scared me more than anything. We didn't talk about it again that night. We shifted back into laughter, dinner, music. But the current underneath us never went away. It hummed like electricity just beneath the surface. Every glance felt like a dare. Every silence like a door creaking open. That night, I went home and stared at myself in the mirror. Not looking at my face, exactly, more like searching for something in my own eyes. Something I'd lost, or maybe never really known. At work, I was useless. Completely disconnected. I'd reread the same sentence 5 times and still not register the meaning. Instead, my mind wandered. I imagined things. Scenarios. Their hands, their eyes, how it would feel to step into something I didn't understand but deeply, achingly craved. I started looking at Claire differently. Not just as a friend anymore, but as a woman who saw me, my loneliness, my hunger, my shame, and didn't flinch. She knew things about me I hadn't told anyone. She'd been there through the worst of my heartbreak. She'd held me when I cried. Listened when I confessed that I hadn't been touched in over a year. That I missed the feeling of being wanted so badly it made my chest ache. Had she filed those pieces away, one by one, planning for this? Or had I unknowingly given them to her? Was I betraying her by wanting it? Or was she the one who broke the line first? The next time I came over, everything felt choreographed. The lights were dimmer. Candles were lit. Music low, sensual, like something out of a scene that didn't belong to real life. Claire handed me a glass of wine and led me through the hallway, chatting casually, like she wasn't about to tilt my world sideways. Then she opened a door at the end of the hall. It was a guest room, I thought at first. But everything about it felt intentional. The lighting, the sheets, the faint scent of something sweet, jasmine, maybe. Soft pillows, dimmed lamps, a bottle of wine already chilling on a tray by the bed. She said, just in case. No pressure. I stepped inside without thinking. Just one step. Enough to feel the warmth of the room. The hush. The intimacy. I told myself I was just looking. Just curious. But the door closed behind me. And everything changed. The next time, I didn't hesitate. I didn't need an invitation. I walked into their house like I had 100 times before, but this time, I already knew where the night was going. My heart was loud in my chest, but my feet were steady. There was no small talk, no pretense of dinner or wine or laughter. Just glances that said more than words ever could. Claire took my hand. Her touch was soft, familiar. But everything about it felt different now, intentional. Charged. She led me down the hallway without saying a word. Jason followed, a quiet shadow behind us, his presence calm and constant. The door was already open. Candles flickered against the walls, casting gold onto the sheets, dancing shadows into the corners. The room smelled like vanilla and something warm, the kind of scent that wraps around you and pulls you under. I didn't ask questions. I didn't speak. I stepped into the room. Claire turned to face me, her eyes searching mine. She didn't smile, not exactly. It was something softer, something vulnerable. Then she reached for my face, gently brushed my hair back, and whispered, "You're safe." Jason stood behind her, quiet, watchful. She looked at me again. "We want this. We want you." And I let go. I stopped fighting the thoughts, the guilt, the hesitation that had kept me tangled in knots for weeks. I let the moment take me. I gave myself to it. Every touch, every breath, every movement, it was all consensual, yes. But there was weight behind it. Unspoken things we didn't dare voice. Things like this changes everything. Things like we can never go back. There was passion, yes. But it wasn't just about bodies. It was something deeper. Stranger. We weren't just crossing lines, we were erasing them. Making something entirely new and dangerously fragile. And I felt everything at once. Desire that burned down to the bone. Confusion that twisted in my chest like smoke. Guilt so sharp it stung, even as I closed my eyes. But I didn't stop. Not when Claire touched me like she knew every wound I carried. Not when Jason traced his fingers across my skin like he'd been waiting for this moment all along. Not even when my heart whispered this will cost you something you can't get back. Because in that moment, I didn't care. I just wanted to feel. Wanted to be wanted. Held. Chosen. And for the first time in years, I did. I surrendered. Completely. Subscribe now to Heartfelt Tales Unfold. You won't believe how fast things unravel next. The next morning was still. Too still. No laughter, no music, no clinking of mugs in the kitchen like there usually was. Just silence, thick and awkward, pressing against the walls like it knew what we'd done. I woke up before them. Or maybe they were already awake, just pretending to sleep. I lay there for a long time, eyes fixed on the ceiling, blanket pulled up to my chin, trying to slow my breathing. My heart was pounding, but not in the same way it had the night before. This time, it was shame. Heavy. Dense. Like it had settled deep into my bones while I slept. I finally got up, dressed in silence, and tiptoed through the hallway like a stranger in a place I used to know. Claire was in the kitchen, back turned to me, pouring coffee. She didn't look up when I walked in. "Morning," I said. She nodded. "Morning." That was it. No smile. No warmth. Just two syllables floating in the air and falling flat between us. Jason walked in a moment later. Shirt wrinkled, eyes tired. He gave me a brief glance, then looked past me like I wasn't even there. The same man who had kissed me like he couldn't breathe without me less than 12 hours ago now couldn't even hold my gaze. I felt like I was floating. Like I'd stepped out of my own body and was watching this awkward, broken version of myself try to exist in their space. I mumbled something about needing to go and grabbed my coat. Claire walked me to the door, but still, no eye contact. "Text me when you get home," she said. I nodded. But she didn't wait for the text. And for days after that, the silence just grew. No morning memes. No silly check-ins. No invitations. When she did text, it was brief, polite, almost cold. Busy today, sorry. Maybe next week. Hope you're good. Crazy day, we'll call you later. But she never did. The absence felt louder than any confrontation could have. I didn't know what I was anymore. A friend? A mistake? A regret they were trying to sweep under the rug? I started questioning every detail, every moment, every touch. Was it real? Or just a fantasy they needed to play out? Was I some emotional experiment? A short-lived thrill? The confusion turned into something bitter. Not rage exactly, more like hurt, dressed up in pride. And then came brunch. We hadn't seen each other in a week, maybe more. Claire invited me out of the blue, like nothing had happened. Said a few of us were getting together at our usual spot. I almost didn't go. But curiosity, or maybe hope, got the better of me. When I arrived, she was already there. Radiant as ever. Laughing. And sitting next to her was someone new. A woman I hadn't seen before. Flirty. Effortlessly beautiful. The kind of beauty that doesn't need filters or effort. She leaned in close to Claire, touching her arm when she laughed, whispering things that made Claire blush. Jason showed up a little later. Sat on the other side of the table. Didn't say much. Barely looked at me. And when he did, it was quick. Distant. Empty. I realized then, whatever that night was, it was over. I wasn't special. I wasn't chosen. I wasn't part of something deeper. I was just a chapter in a book they'd already moved past. Maybe I was never meant to stay in their lives. Maybe I was just a phase. And that realization hurt more than I ever thought it would. I keep replaying that night in my head. Over and over. Like a loop I can't escape. Like if I just examine it from one more angle, I'll finally understand what really happened. But all it does is sink me deeper into the questions. Was I used? Or did I use them? Was I a pawn in some game they'd played before? Or was I the one who saw an open door and walked through it, knowing full well what I was doing? Sometimes I tell myself I was manipulated. That I was vulnerable. That Claire and Jason saw my loneliness, saw how badly I needed connection, and offered me a version of it I couldn't refuse. But other times, I wonder if I knew. If I wanted it to happen. If I let it happen because a part of me was tired of pretending I was fine. I can't shake Claire's face from my mind. The way she looked at me the next morning, distant, detached, like the person who held me in her arms the night before had disappeared. And I don't know what hurts more, losing her as a friend or realizing she might have never really been one. I scroll through our old messages sometimes. The ones from before everything. The ones where she checked in on me, sent silly memes, reminded me to eat. They feel like messages from another lifetime. Now, every word from her feels filtered. Careful. Stripped of warmth. I keep asking myself, was this planned? Had they talked about this for weeks? Months? Was there a conversation one night, maybe after a glass of wine, where Claire said, "What about her?" and Jason nodded? Was I a choice? Or was I just the easiest person to ask? The thought makes my skin crawl. Not because of what we did, but because of how easily I said yes. And now I feel exposed. Like a secret that's been told too loud in a room too quiet. Discarded. Like a spark that burned too fast and too bright, and now they've moved on to someone else, someone new. And still, I feel guilty. Guilty for saying yes. Guilty for wanting it. Guilty for what it did to us, whatever us even was. Did I destroy a friendship by crossing a line that never should have been there in the first place? I tried to write Claire a letter. A way to explain everything I couldn't say out loud. I started and stopped it 3 times. The words never came out right. Because how do you apologize for something you're not even sure you regret? I wanted to ask her what changed. I wanted to tell her I missed her. I wanted to ask if she ever thought about that night, or if she'd already erased it. But I never sent it. There's one line that keeps echoing in my head, no matter how hard I try to forget. We've talked about you before. I think about that line all the time. Where were they? What were they doing? What was said? What did they see in me that made them say yes to this, before I even had the chance to say no? I never found out what they said about me. And maybe that's the part that hurts the most. what would you have done? Really? Be honest with me. Would you have said no? Walked away the moment it got blurry? Or would you have done what I did, stood still, let the door close, and told yourself it was just one night? Was I wrong for saying yes, or were they wrong for asking? I've turned that question over in my head so many times it doesn't even sound like words anymore. It's just a feeling now. A weight I carry quietly in the space where that friendship used to be. But I'm tired of carrying it alone. So tell me, would you have done anything differently? Have you ever crossed a line that changed everything? Or been the one who was invited into something that felt safe, until it wasn't? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Please. Because I need to know I'm not the only one who's ever stood in that kind of silence. Not the only one who got caught between right and real. And if stories like this one make you feel something, if they stir something raw and honest inside you, hit like. And subscribe to Heartfelt Tales Unfold. Because this was just one story, and there are so many more waiting to be told. Sometimes, the most dangerous betrayals don't come from enemies. They come from the people you trust to protect your heart. The ones who know your pain, your past, your patterns, and still push you towards something that looks like comfort but feels like fire. And sometimes, the greatest mistake isn't crossing a line, it's pretending the line was never there to begin with. We like to think we're immune, that we're above temptation, that we'd know better. But desire doesn't come with a warning. It doesn't announce itself politely. It creeps in quietly, softly, dressed like love, disguised as connection. It curls up in the spaces where you're aching most. And once it's let in, it rarely leaves quietly. What I did, what we did, it happened, and I can't take it back. But I can tell the truth. And sometimes, that has to be enough.